Hello, friends, and welcome to Season 7 of the Future Ready Librarians podcast series, Leading from the Library. This is a podcast for all librarians wherever you are in your journey. It is filled with amazing guests, important topics, and engaging conversations that will inspire, engage, and support all of us as Future Ready librarians. I am your host, Shannon McClintock Miller. I am the district teacher librarian at Van Meter Community School in Van Meter, Iowa, and serve as the Future Ready Librarians leader. I have the pleasure of working within my library and school community and also with others around the country and world through Future Ready Librarian events, conferences, consulting, writing, and more. I am honored to bring these voices and the work of others to our podcast and to all of you. Well, as we get to the end of Season 7 of our Future Ready Librarian podcast, last week I saw my dear friend Stephanie at the AASL conference, and we were talking about AI in the hallway, and she said, I would love to join you to talk about AI. And I was like, oh yeah, that would be great, because AI is a topic that everybody is wondering. Teachers, kids, librarians, families, everybody's wondering what that's going to mean, not only to education, but how AI is going to have a place in the school library. And so I'm really excited to have my friend Stephanie on today just to talk about that and just get some ideas from her and see what she's doing at her school and just catch up. So first, I'm just going to have you introduce yourself.
Yay! Thanks for having me. I'm Stephanie Galvan Russell. I am a middle school librarian in Austin, Texas, and this is my 7th year as a librarian. And I've been in the middle school now for 5 years. This is my 5th year as a middle school librarian. It's the best job ever. And so when ChatGPT came out in last November, it's almost a year already.
Yeah, isn't
Wow.
that crazy?
Yes. It's crazy how it just took off and now there's so many other things.
Yeah.
So yeah, when it came out last November, I thought this is silly. Like I didn't think it was going to be a big thing. I thought like this is silly. No one's going to use it. It's too weird. And then in December, Matt Miller started like praising it, and he did a whole like week training on it on his blog. And then he just went wild with it. And so I thought, okay, if Matt Miller loves it, then I'm gonna give it another try and let's play with it some more. And I loved it. And I thought like this is such a fun tool, especially because it's a chat bot. Like it's what we used to use when I was little on AIM.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was just like, and like when I'm doing trainings on it with teachers, I explain with like, do y'all remember Smarter Child on AIM? And he had very limited responses. Like this is kind of like Smarter Child, but way better, like Smarter Child on steroids. And so I thought we have to get ahead of this. Like we can't just be kind of letting it roll and like letting it get ahead of especially librarians, because we're the ones that people, especially teachers, are going to be looking to figure out like how do we use this. And it's really funny because now like today I was talking to my students about it, and we're writing 2-sentence horror stories with my 8th graders, and I asked them like, have any of y'all tried using ChatGPT to write your stories? And they were like, why? Like ChatGPT is lame now. And I was like, you guys, it's only been out for a year. And they're like, yeah, but like there's Bard, and there's the one on Microsoft, like the Bing chatbot, and there's all these other ones. And I was like, oh, well, I still love ChatGPT.
So,
But yeah.
yeah, like show me the other ones too.
Yeah. And they were telling me that they like Bard better because Bard gives you the sources. And I was like, I'm so proud of you guys, because they said, you tell us all the time not to trust anything on the internet. And so now we're using the things that tell us its sources so that we know like if it's legit. And I thought, I'm so proud of you guys. Look at you actually listening to me.
Love it. Well, and I think that's like just like the first question that I work with kids in my school from preschool to 12th grade. And so and all the teachers too. And so of course, like there are so many things that we can do really with all of those grade levels. But I think the first thing, like just to start with, is like how we as librarians and educators can use it with kids. I mean, that's a huge question for people because even districts are saying like, is it safe? Or which source, like which things do we use, which tools, and what is good for education? And I think that the big thing, like one thing that I think about a lot is just our kids finding resources and how they are researching and how they're being, using that inquiry like that we want them to use. And so let's just talk about that for a minute, like what this could mean for our kids.
Yeah. So first thing that I always like to remind people is when you first sign up for any kind of, AI tool, and especially ChatGPT, it says, do you give your permission to use the data? And people freak out. And I tell it, but you have to remember it's learning from what you put in.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting that at a session this weekend at AASL, I don't remember who it was, but it was about using ChatGPT in school. And they said, you're not going to put in your student's IEP and ask it to make accommodations because then you're giving it that information. So whatever you put in is what it's going to use. And they had a really good analogy. They said garbage in, garbage out. So if you're giving it information that is biased or that isn't going to be great to put out there, it's kind of like what we teach the kids about putting things on social media. You're not going to put stuff out there that you don't want available to everyone.
Yeah.
So then I was really excited because I think it was February, they changed the age of use guidelines from 18 to 13. And so what I do with my students is like my 6th and 7th graders, I will just pull ChatGPT up on my ClearTouch and show them the things. So like when we were doing 2-sentence horror stories, for example, I had them let's write a 2-sentence horror story from the perspective of something. And I would have them tell me. And then I would tell it, all right, give me another one, give me another one, give me another one, just regenerate. And then I would have them look at what it was giving me and tell them, okay, let's see how these are different. Like now we're doing analysis. But with the 8th graders, since they're 13 and 14 and they can actually use it, I have them using ChatGPT to edit. So example, today with the 2-sentence horror stories, I had them put it in and I told them, tell it to fix your spelling and your grammar. And we were focusing on complex sentences.
Motion detected at the front door.
Complex sentences and descriptive words. And I said, tell it to look for those. Tell it to give you feedback on those things. And they were like, this is really cool. Like, we didn't think about using it for this. And I said, yeah, guys, like it's a tool. Use it. And even my ELA teachers were excited because they were saying, we thought, and I think this is kind of where everybody is, we thought they were going to use it like to copy paste answers. Yeah. And I said, yeah, but it just depends on how you teach them to use it, which is what I'm doing is I'm showing them, instead of course you can go in and tell it, write an essay on, I don't know, whatever. But when you can have it write multiple essays and then do some analysis or have it, tell you how your essay was and give you feedback, then you're using it to fix your own work and to kind of deepen your understanding. And so I think that's where we as librarians especially can kind of get that buy-in from teachers and getting them to see, like, if you are telling them to put something in there and giving it the feedback that you, the teacher, would give, but then seeing it from something else, like that's going to be where they're more excited because they're going to get that feedback from something else that's not you. And we know that they don't want to listen to us half of the time anyway.
It's so true though, because I'm sure that that has helped so much with the teacher buy-in, because it's really the teachers who have all these questions, like that they're the ones that they come to us for answers on. They might hear of, there's a lot of things out there now, like Curipod, they're hearing about that, or is it Diffit? Have you heard
Oh,
that one?
different.
And like lots of things that they want to know, like, so what are these things, like how can we use them? A cool one the other day, like we use quizzes, and quizzes has a Chrome extension now that's AI. It is so cool.
I didn't know there's an extension now.
Yes, it came
I
out
have
like
to go
a
look at it.
few days ago, and I tried it out, like well, I actually did like the little course thing last night because I was just curious on how everything worked. It was so good, so informative, and you can even put like a YouTube video in there, and it was so amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so those are the things too that, like, not only how we're supporting our kids with, like, critical thinking or helping them. I love your idea of the 2 sentence horror story, like, and just talking with your kids through that. But then these teacher tools that we have, and how that's really going to change the way that our teachers and us as teacher librarians are creating materials for our kids too, I think is really exciting.
Yeah, and especially like I love Curipod, and I'm actually presenting on it on Thursday with TCEA on, I don't know, somewhere. But I have a session called Curipod is the new Nearpod, and I was like beta testing it with my teachers, and they were like, "Well, I don't like that it's going to build my presentation for me." And I said, "Okay, think about it like this. When you go into Nearpod and you use one of their starter lessons and then you build off of that, are you having it build your whole lesson for you, or are you using what you know about your students and what you know about your content to fix it?" And they thought, yeah. And I said, okay, it's the same thing. It's giving you a starting point, but it gives you all those little embedded things already done, like the polls and the thinking questions, and then the brain breaks are my favorite, like draw a random pig with a tutu on or something. They're
Oh,
so fun. And I told them, like, we don't have enough time as it is, and especially now, like, we don't have time for anything, and their PLC time is getting cut. So why not use these tools that are meant to make things easier for you and have it start things for you? I mean, we reuse our lessons from last year all the time, so why don't you use what you already have and then add on to something new?
I know, and I think about that too. Like I was like showing it when I was in Texas last week. I was in Dallas, and so I was showing it just as I was presenting. And it's something that you can use it like as a springboard. You could use it to make your full lesson, or you can use it as like a springboard to make you like more creative and innovative, because it gives you these ideas and then you can add whatever you want, which I love. And
I
that's,
even had
yeah, it's cool.
I, it's amazing. I even in that session at AASL, they were saying they told it an exact standard. I think they were New York, and they put in, build a lesson with this exact standard and make sure that you hit on this and this and this. And so at the end of its lesson in Curipod, it built the lesson, it made sure that it hit those exact things the kids needed, and then the discussion questions and the check questions at the end of it were like tailored to that specific standard. And I thought, that makes it so much easier than us having to look at, like, in Texas we have TEKS, like
Yeah.
looking at our TEKS and our standards and thinking, did I get it right? Like, is this what my kids are going to see when they're tested? Is this what they're going to be familiar with? Like, did I use the right vocabulary? It just makes it so much easier to really get exactly what your kids are going to need.
Yeah. And I think that's the neat thing too. Like when I first learned about it and some of these other tools too, I just like think of topics that either tie into like our standards or something that we do, as librarians. And it's just fun to play around with it, like anything new to us. Learning it yourself first is so important. And so I think when we all heard about it at first, it's a little scary and it's something new. And are we going to be able to understand it? But as soon as you start having a few experiences with it, you learn that it is something that everyone can use, regardless of what level you are.
Yeah, and it makes things really fun when you're just trying new things. Like I tell my teachers, just get in there and play with it. Ask it silly questions.
Yeah.
And like at I think it was TLA last year during Brandy and I's session, we told it build a travel itinerary for like 3 days in wherever you want to go. And you can even tell it like on a budget of like $100 or like $20 a day, or find things that are free or things to do with a family. And like getting started with, you don't have to start with how's it connect to your classroom. You can start with simple stuff like
Yeah.
planning a vacation. Or I even did have it make a social media calendar for you. And then there's your whole social media I did for the month. So I can already just go in and see like, okay, today I'm going to do a makerspace Monday, and tomorrow's going to be, what are you reading Wednesday? And I already know what I want to put in. And then I can even tell it like, what are some trending hashtags, or incorporate emojis, because I'm so bad at using emojis. But it makes it so much fun. And then, when the kids see you trying these new things, then they're going to be excited to try the new things. And that's what we want. We want them to be excited and not afraid that if they do something and it comes out dumb, or like it gives them a silly response, like it's okay. These are tools. They're to be played with.
Yeah. Well, and I think that like, Hagen, he's in college now. And when it first came out too, that a lot of people thought, well, that's cheating, like it's cheating to use that. And so we have a big opportunity too, as librarians, just like you have done, to show them, and what I do, with my students, to show them that, no, this is a tool. Like I talked to Hagen about that. And I showed him one time, like how I was working on presentations, like submitting presentations and like catchy titles for blog posts. And I'm like, it's your ideas, like your thinking and of what you want it to say. It's just helping you be more like creative, and just helping you like be wordier, or put, like you said, emojis or hashtags or whatever you want in there. And you can go with it, or you don't have to go with it. And I think that's the neat thing too.
You don't have to you don't have to use anything it tells you. You can just use it like as a starting point. And I think when we talk about cheating, and this is where in my presentations I make a lot of teachers mad, and I tell them, if you're giving the kids an assignment where they can copy paste something that's going to be the answer, who's really using, or who's really at the disadvantage here? Like, is it the kid who's using a tool to do something that they know is a waste of time? Or is it you for giving them the assignment that they can copy paste? Mm-hmm. Like I had one of my friends tell me, her son's a baseball player and he just wants to pass the classes that he doesn't care about. And the teacher told them like, write an essay on something. And he just copy pasted an essay from ChatGPT. And I said, okay, well, here's the thing though. Instead of having him write an essay, why didn't she have him do like make a podcast, or, make a video on something, or like make a GIF, like make them create something? Or like, how did you write an essay from ChatGPT and your teacher didn't realize like that's not how you write? Like, we know our kids, and like if a kid turned in something written from ChatGPT, I think I would know, because one of my students cannot spell to save their lives, but I know how they write, and I know that they don't write like that. But I also know that I don't think they're going to think far enough to put in like, write this from the perspective of a 12-year-old,
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I also think like, if we are not evolving, just like technology is, like, then we're not helping our students. Because when you think about, I don't remember where I read it, but somebody said like the jobs that our students are going to have are not even invented yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're not prepared to get them prepared, we're doing them a disservice. And if they're going to be using, I already saw a job posting for an AI prompt generator. Like they have to know how to use these tools. So we don't have a choice. We have to learn how to use them and teach them how to use it. I tell the kids all the time, use your powers for good,
Yep.
not for evil, and not for, doing things the easy way. We want to make sure that we're giving them that advantage and that preparation for their future.
Well, and I mean, that's how I feel about Hagen, like having conversations last year when it came out with him, and he was already taking college classes and working on things, that he was doing as a senior. And I think it's pretty cool to think about these tools that they're going to have. And even, things that, like you just said, to be able to create with tools too. And that's why all the time I'm so excited when I see, and I'm excited for what is to come, because we think about what's been created and not even the last year. Like, how are some of these like creation tools, like look at Canva,
Yeah.
look at all the cool things that we can do. Like, I can't wait to see how that will come to a lot of other tools where our kids are using these to be creative and to, do things like the things in Canva this week or last week when they came out, like, are so cool.
Oh,
I
and how it brings in pictures and you just type in instead of having to do like the searching for the exact picture you want.
I know, isn't that amazing? I mean, it's just really neat. And thinking about too, like one thing that I wanted to ask you today was like, I was so excited to find the quizzes thing. Are there any other tools that we haven't talked about that you've seen, like cool things that have
So
started?
many. Hold on. Let me pull up my presentation that has them all in there.
Oh, because that's something too that I think is so fun to think about.
Yeah. And what I already think, like, I look at the presentations I've already done and the tools that I've already taught my teachers, or like just have been excited about. Like, AI is moving us along so quickly that my presentation that I made in April is already outdated.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's like Matt Miller said, ChatGPT is the lowest level of AI we're going to see. And he called it the MySpace of AI. Made me so sad.
Gosh.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
there is, so one of my favorite ones that I have been teaching my teachers about is Quillbot. And so you put in your text and you ask it to paraphrase it. And this one, yeah. And this one I love because my students have the hardest time when we're doing research paraphrasing. They want to do direct quotes for everything. And I even tell them all the time, like, I'm writing a dissertation and I think paraphrasing is hard. Like, I have to really think before I can go and rewrite somebody else's writing. And so I use Quillbot to show them, look at how it's changing that text. And it's just another form of analysis, right? Like showing the kids how it's a tool. But then when I show the teachers, they get excited because they're learning how to use it for their own stuff.
Yeah. As a teaching tool for them too.
Yeah. And then there is Perplexity, and Perplexity came out before Bard, but Perplexity is similar in that it gives you its sources. And so you can go in and tell it, teach me how to fix my sunroof, like a broken sunroof. And it's going to show you, here's where I got this information. And I think that's important when we're talking to our students too, because we want them to always, come back with their citations and show us where they got their information. And I've told them I like Perplexity better when it's asking for sources, because when you go into ChatGPT, and I've showed them this too, like if you want it to give you a list of resources. So I had students who were researching, they were doing, it could have been anything in Europe. And I think I had somebody who was doing the history of F1 racing. And I told him, go into ChatGPT and tell it to give you resources on the history of it. And then there you go. You can start looking through those. And it works. And I tell him, okay, now go in and tell it to give you peer-reviewed articles, and then go in and tell it to give you, articles that are appropriate for a middle schooler. Whereas Perplexity, it's already going to give him those sources, and he doesn't have to constantly rework his prompt. And so I really like that one because it does that. And it doesn't hallucinate like ChatGPT does, where it makes things up. So that's where I really get my students. And I tell them, just because we see it, it's just like everything on social media. Just because we see it doesn't mean it's real. And so sometimes it'll give you an article or research or a citation that isn't real. And I tell them, you have to check everything that it tells you, because remember, it's trained on information from the internet. So it's going to have biases. It's going to have things that aren't legit. It's going to have things that, are misinformation. You have to check everything, where, Perplexity is going to give you those resources already.
It's really cool. I can't wait to I have not heard of that one, so I can't wait to check that out. Give us one more cool one.
Well, one that I think people don't use enough and they don't realize is actually AI is the PowerPoint speaker coach. Oh. So if you go into PowerPoint, and I can't remember. I know there's the online version and there's a downloaded version, but only one of them has the speaker coach. So you pull up your slides and it coaches you through your talking of it. And so it'll tell you, you're saying too much. You're saying you're doing too long of pauses, or you're going too fast. And I don't think people realize that was a form of AI, and now they're slowly going to. But I forget to use it all the time. And then I remember, oh yeah, I have this tool I can use to help me prepare for presentations and stuff. And I think that one is one that's really, really underutilized. And I think if we used it more, our students would not only become better speakers, but they'd become better trainers when they teach each other.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter what their age is. Like, you could use it as a teacher, because that's such an important part of like how our kids use technology. Yeah. I know Microsoft is probably going to have, I love seeing every time they come out with something, that it's just so exciting. It's so fun.
If they're going to do anything with Flip.
I always wonder that too. Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm sure they will. I'm excited to see what they do now.
Detected at the front door.
I'm totally sure that they will. I know, it's so fun. And I think when I saw like the extension for quizzes, and then, just last week we had all this stuff with Canva, like there's a lot of tools that we've used for a long time that I'm sure everybody's thinking about how they can embed it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even Spotify's jumping on board. If you go into Spotify and you search for AI DJ, it will give you like a radio host tailored to you. And it'll even talk you through and like explain like, oh, I chose this band because you like this band from the 90s. And it even does commercials, not like real ones, but every couple songs, he'll come back, or you can make it a female voice if you want, and they'll talk to you. So even things like Spotify that I thought there's no way they can make AI a part of it.
Maybe our That is so cool. I've learned so much now. I just can't even wait. This is all I'm going to be doing tonight. Thanks to you, my friend. Yay! I love it. Well, I'm sure that people might have some questions. And so tell everybody where they can find you online.
Of course, you can find me on all the social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, even though no one uses it anymore. I'm on Twitch. I'm pretty much everywhere at Lispy Librarian, Lispy Librarian, or you can email me at lispylibrarian@gmail.com.
Oh, thank you so much. I love seeing you last week, and I was so excited about today, and now I can't wait. I'm sure that I took like a ton of notes, and I can't wait to just go play with this. So thank you so much.
Yay, I can't wait to see what you learn.
I know, you're amazing, my friend. Keep being amazing and sharing all the things.
Thanks for having me.
As always, thank you to all of our listeners for joining us for this episode of the Future Ready Librarian podcast series, Leading from the Library. And a very special thank you to our sponsors, Follett. You make a difference in our libraries, schools, and within our lives and that of our students every day. We appreciate everything you do. I hope you can take what you learned in today's podcast and put it to use within your practice as a future ready librarian. If I can support you in any way, please feel free to reach out to me on Twitter or Instagram at Shannon M. Miller or to my email at shannonmcclintockmiller@gmail.com. I am always happy to help. Until next time, friends, keep finding ways to lead within and from your library.